Welcome to Mid-Century Living, your weekly nostalgia podcast about the best of technology and culture from the mid-20th century.
Welcome to Mid-Century Living, the show where we talk all about the best of the mid-20th century and how to add vintage vibes to your modern life. We're your hosts, Jackie.
And Gonzalo. Thanks for joining us today.
So in today's episode, kind of inspired by our catch-up chatter from last episode, we're going to talk all about Weight Watchers. But before we get into it, Gonzalo, how was your week?
So my week was fun. I got to use one of the etiquettes, or should I say etiquettes, from last week's episode because I was lucky enough to be asked to show one of my students' animals at our FFA, which I guess if you're not from Texas, that is Future Farmer Leaders of America. Anyway, they raise livestock and then they show it, and as part of their practice, they show it to the teachers, and then the teachers get to show the animals whilst being coached by the students. But regardless of all that, it meant I got to wear my hat.
Yay!
Yeah, I have a Stetson, and I never wear it because, it's 2024. But anyway, I got to wear it, and I got to use the rule from last week where when a man enters a building, they take their hat off. So when I entered the building, I took my hat off, and then I realized very quickly that I didn't know how to hold a hat. So I'm just holding it by the rim with both my hands, and I'm like, I don't know what to do.
I believe that the only etiquette from that list about holding the hat was that no one can see the inside of your hat while you're holding it. They didn't say what to do with it, though.
Yes, but I did remember that day when I took my hat off. And I go, hey, we just learned about this.
When you doffed your hat.
That's right, when I doffed my hat. So anyway, that was my week. How was your week? Any hat related incidents?
I actually do have a hat related incident to bring up. So I made my first me-made dress of 2024, and because I'm just trying to work through all of my stash fabric, I started with this knit, basically sundress pattern to get 3 yards of this knit that I had out of my sewing closet. And but it's January, so I needed to winterize it somehow. So when I wore it to work this week, I wore a beret.
Ooh.
And like a cardigan with it to like kind of make it wintry, and I got a ton of compliments on it. And 2 days later, another female employee at work was wearing a hat to work. So I think not only am I a hat person now, but also I've established the office as like a hat friendly office. And now everyone's just going to start wearing hats.
That's one small step for hats. One
giant leap for hat fashion. Anyway,
that's cool.
I do have actually hat related anecdote. We'll see if it lasts after winter, though, honestly. But I think maybe people, if they're like me anyway, know that their heads are warmer if they wear hats. But then they're like, well, I don't want to wear this all day at work. But if everyone keeps encouraging people by telling them that they look cute in their hats, people are going to wear hats to work more. So it's really just for everyone's benefit, I think. So maybe yep. It'll be a hat winter, but I'm still okay with that. I'm calling that a win.
That is a win. So 2024, the start of hat wearing season. But let's get on with today's episode. So today, like Jackie said, we're talking about Weight Watchers. So Jackie, why don't you get us started?
So when I was researching vintage diet recipes last week, I ended up on this like Weight Watchers rabbit hole, and turns out it's actually a pretty interesting story about like a female entrepreneur and the power of just being passionate about something and trying to help people. And so I thought it would be a great topic for an episode. So and luckily for our podcast, most of it takes place in the 60s. So there's plenty to dig into. So I'm going to start with a little bit of the history of the founder. So Jean Nidetch was a housewife and mother who was born in 1923 and came from a working class family. She actually dropped out of college. She was a business major, but dropped out of college in 1942 so that she could get a job and help support her family. What I find particularly relatable about her, and most people do, and I think that's why the program was so successful, is that she was overweight her whole life, always struggled with her weight, and had tried pills, hypnosis, and fad diets, all of which only led to regained weight. And she had a rock bottom moment in 1961 where she was 38 at the time and weighed 214 pounds, and an acquaintance mistook her for being pregnant, and she freaked out.
Ooh, that's embarrassing.
Yeah, I know. That's like everyone's worst nightmare. So she freaked out and signed up for this free 10-week weight loss program sponsored by the New York City Board of Health's obesity clinic, which was basically they taught everyone something called the prudent diet, which was a fat and cholesterol controlled diet developed in the 50s by the head of the New York City Board of Health's Bureau of Nutrition. So it sounds like it was pretty clinical and strict. Jean lost 20 pounds following the program, but she hated the meetings. She's quoted as saying that the women who ran the clinic had never been overweight in their lives and did not understand the struggle. Discussion was discouraged at the meetings, and it didn't really fix her mindset problem. She said that her motivation was threatened by her constant urges to binge on Malamar cookies.
Do you know what a Malamar cookie is?
I looked at a picture of it, so it looks like a chocolate covered marshmallow biscuity thing. I was actually watching a YouTube video from as part of my research for with the current CEO of WW talking about the founder, and she said that like having her hidden box of Malamars is what led her to this next bit in my thing, is because a lot of her friends who were also on diets all admitted once she did that they all had like a hidden box of Malamars like somewhere in their house where they had their like secret snacks that they were not supposed to eat, and like because they all had this relatable moment they decided to basically start this support group. So that kind of her friends kept asking her how she lost those 20 pounds, so eventually she started holding weekly support group meetings in her apartment. um, she started by inviting 6 friends, but within 2 months her meetings grew to 40 women a week, and to cover costs she charged 25 cents per meeting.
Wow.
1961 money. So basically, she covered the exact same diet regimen from the Prudent Diet Plan, but her groups provided empathy, mutual understanding, support, and sharing of stories and ideas, everything she thought that the original program was missing. And the meetings also included weekly weigh ins and a reward system, including prizes for weight loss milestones.
Oh, that's cool. If anyone was wondering, 25 cents per meeting in 1961 is $2.48 today.
Oh, that's still not bad.
No, not at all.
If she felt like she could cover costs with that, that's great.
Yeah. And also kudos to all of them for having a stash of things and not eating them, because I don't have that willpower. If I have snacks at the house, I will eat them.
I think that that's the point, actually, is that everyone was pretending they were doing really well, but they would just like hide in the laundry room and eat their secret Malamars.
Oh, I don't hide. I'm out in the open.
You're out in the
Not
open
out in
eating
the
your
open. I'm in the living room.
Yeah, there's like definitely, yeah, but it did seem like that was everyone just wanted some safe space where they could talk about all of their problems together, and that's what made this program different and interesting and supportive.
Cool.
So that's why I think it's cool. Anyway, and also another reason it was cool is that Jean was super authentic and like really into this herself personally the whole time. And while she was coaching groups, she was also following the diet herself. And in October of 1962, she made it to her goal weight of 142 pounds. And the best part about it is that she maintained that weight loss the rest of her life. And according to her, she never exceeded 150 pounds ever since then.
Wow.
So as these meetings took off and she continued expanding her circle, she ended up in hosting one meeting that was in the home of a businessman named Al Lippert and his wife Felice. And after both husband and wife successfully lost weight on the program, they convinced Jean to turn her idea into a business. And Weight Watchers Inc. officially launched in 1963.
Awesome. Cool.
So Nidetch was president and spokesperson, and she also continued to lead groups, but she started at this point training others to lead groups. Al Lippert was in charge of the business end, and Felice was in charge of the recipe development, nutrition, and food research. So they, at this point, were renting public meeting venues, and now they raised their prices to $2 per weekly meeting.
Which in today's dollars is $19.91.
All right. In 1964, they franchised the company. Graduates from the company's programs who had kept the weight off were offered a franchise. But by 1967, the company was international with 102 franchises around the world.
Wow, that's a short amount of time for such a big jump.
Yeah, I know. Like it just like it's crazy. So she like has her diet freak out moment in 1961, and they are internationally franchised in 1967.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people were having this problem and really wanted to help. And I think her sounding authentic and like genuinely wanting to help all these people the same way she helped herself, I think is like what makes it so appealing. And also probably why I've been having so much fun reading about early Weight Watchers. I just find it fascinating and I find it kind of inspirational.
That's good.
But then you dig into what the actual Weight Watchers plan was like in the 1960s, and it seems a little less appealing because it is stricter than, well, I was expecting, I should say. So all the following Weight Watchers in the 60s data is from the 1967 edition of the Weight Watchers cookbook. So the principles and underlying concepts are that overeating is a habit, that you should proceed with your weight loss one meal at a time, one day at a time, and 1 week at a time. No crash dieting, control your environment, learn to laugh, no alcohol, no skipping meals, and no counting calories. No excuses, stick to the plan and the plan will work, and maintenance is important.
I mean, some of those rules are kind of
I
like,
know, like some of these I really like proceed one meal at a time,
I
one
love
day
that
at a
one.
time. Love that. Learn to laugh is great. Control your environment is useful because, like you just admitted, that if there's a box of cookies in your house, you're eating that whole box of cookies.
Yep.
Like I think knowing yourself is like a very good, like if you actually are trying to not eat the cookies, like not keeping them in their house is a great way to do it. No skipping meals and no counting calories. Love it.
I said I like sticking to the plan because consistency is really what gets you results in anything.
Mm-hmm. No excuses is nice. Like treating it like a habit, like that stuff I like. But then, and like maintenance is important. Yeah. So actually, like the concepts I think are
Hmm.
great. Actually, like if this is your goal and you want to achieve your goal, these are all very
Yeah.
great tips. So that part I actually like. It's once you get to the food rules that all of a sudden I start getting kind of itchy because it's like a lot more food math. And maybe like that won't come as a surprise to anyone listening who's done Weight Watchers or knows someone doing Weight Watchers. I believe now, and we'll get to it a little bit later, that like they use a point system.
I've heard. I've heard about that, and I do my own food math, but it's not Weight Watchers.
Right. But so back before they had their point system where like food was actually assigned points, they basically just had food lists and you have to eat from these lists of acceptable foods. Anyway, so like the first rule was eat only the foods listed on your menu plan in the quantity specified and at the meals specified. And they encourage weighing your portions until you can judge them accurately without weighing them. So then there's
Okay.
just like this whole, and I wrote the whole thing down, and I don't know if all of this is going to be interesting radio, but only 4 to 7 eggs per week, only hard cheese or cottage cheese or pot or farmer's cheese, which I don't even know what that is, but maybe our Wisconsin listeners will.
Ah.
You must eat a minimum of 5 Group A fish meals each week for lunches or dinners. And Group A, so they group their meats into Group A meats and Group B meats. Fish and meat are separate lists, which again amuses me, but anyway, like Group A meats are basically boneless, skinless white meat and organ meats. And then Group B meats are all beef, lamb, dark meat, and frankfurters.
Ooh. I love that that's part of a mid-century diet.
Still included, you know it's going to come up. Um, and then the Group A fish list is basically any fish in the universe except for the fish that are on Group B, which are mackerel, pompano, salmon, shad, and whitefish.
So can you not eat those? Because my favorite fish is salmon.
From my understanding, the Group A and Group B lists are both acceptable lists. It's just that you're supposed to eat mainly from Group
Mm,
A and only from Group B on
I see.
occasion. So they have a separate off-limits list that does not include those things. So they're acceptable foods, it's just you're supposed to be like primarily from Group A. The meat and poultry gets more specific, where you have to select a maximum of 5 weekly meat meals, lunches or dinners only, from Group A, and a maximum of 3 weekly meat meals, lunches or dinners from Group B. So this is where I'm getting to the part where I'm like, this is food math that I'm not. But maybe if you sit down and plan your menu, it's not as
It does
complicated.
sound pretty complicated, but like you said, if you're a planner, it's probably easy. And I think that's also part of the whole idea behind Weight Watchers is that it's about planning and it's about
Yeah, and being more mindful and making actual decisions instead of just
exactly.
eating. Yeah, I just feel like I would end up in a situation where I'm like, "Oh no, they only have lamb and frankfurters, but I already ate my group B meat this week, so now I just have to eat the veggie tray."
But remember, proceed with your weight loss one meal at a time, one day at a time, right?
Yeah, so maybe yeah, maybe as long as you're being mindful about your
Yeah.
choices. But anyway, that's what the part where I'm like, okay, now I'm having to do like it doesn't account for like surprise incidents that come up. I don't think if you have to like sit down and be like I'm but then again if you know that you're going to a barbecue and that there's going to be frankfurters there, you're going to save your group B meal for the barbecue.
Yeah. Control your environment.
Yeah, control your environment. So then they also split vegetables into 2 lists. They have limited vegetables and unlimited vegetables. So the limited vegetables are like the obvious carbier vegetables for the most part, like turnips and squash and pumpkin. But then they
Aw.
also have like onions and green beans on here, which I've always considered to be a non-starchy vegetable. And then the unlimited vegetables are like asparagus, broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, cucumber, blah blah blah. And you can eat those. You can eat them whenever you want. So that's cool. Bean sprouts are on there, and that's just crunchy water.
Sorry. I was trying to hold it in. Crunchy water.
So like French style green beans are on the unlimited vegetable list, but green beans, maybe green beans in the 60s meant like, what are those ones that everyone hates?
Brussels sprouts?
No, that like kids used to get and then they never wanted to eat them again. They're like shaped like kidney beans, but they're green. What are those called?
Peas?
No, like they're bean shaped.
Green beans. Edamame?
Yeah, like no, what are those called? Why can't I remember this vegetable? I don't eat them.
You're just describing a bean that's green. Green
No,
bean.
there's a name for them. And
Green
everyone
bean.
stop it. Let me look at
We're not editing this part
yeah.
out.
No, we're editing this out because I have to Google the name of it. You're gonna totally know what I meant as soon as I find a picture of this. Lima beans.
When were you served lima beans next to fish sticks?
I was not, but people in the 70s were. And that's why they all grew up and hate fish sticks is because and don't eat vegetables is because their mom gave them fish sticks and lima beans steamed or poured straight from a can and heated up on the stove and they thought it was so gross and now they don't eat any vegetables and that's why you have to tell your parents to eat vegetables that no they can try it roasted because like they taste better now we know how to cook them but because they grew up eating lima beans and fish sticks and their lives were terrible. I think that's probably what she means by green beans because
I love fish sticks.
I do too. I love anything fried into a nugget or a stick, though, honestly.
Yeah. So, what other food rules did Weight Watchers have in the mid century?
So, condiments and seasonings are unlimited, which is cool. Fruit, you have to have 3 to 5 servings a day, and one daily fruit has to be either an orange or a grapefruit. Milk is included, or must be included, in your daily program. You can only eat enriched or whole grain packaged bread according to the amount allowed for your age and gender. No rolls, bagels, biscuits, muffins, crackers, cereals, or special breads.
What's a special bread?
Probably anything fun like hot cross buns or cinnamon
Oh, okay.
rolls.
So no Cinnabon.
No Cinnabon. And that also transitions nicely into the do not eat or drink the following except for legal recipes given in this book list, which is huge. A lot of it makes sense, like ice cream and cookies and candy, but then cream cheese is on here. Jello is on here, but I know for a fact that unflavored gelatin's in their recipe books, so that's why they clarify that, except for in recipes given in this book. No ketchup or mayonnaise, no jelly, no olives, no peanut butter, no pudding. Well, that makes sense, I guess, because that's a dessert.
So basically, all the fun stuff sticking out.
Do you have anything that stands out to you on the do not list that you want to add a music commentary to?
Yeah, it all looks. I mean, like you said, it seems pretty self-explanatory. You know, if you're trying to manage your weight and you're trying to manage your lifestyle, probably not going to go around eating donuts with every meal, which is on the list, or eating ice cream every day, which is also in your meal on this list. I mean, so it makes sense. There is something to be said for moderation
Right.
of things, which I think is why they said maintenance is important in one of the rules. Because to me, that's saying like, okay, so you accidentally had, or you know, not accidentally, but I fell into a pile of donuts and went in my mouth. But no, I mean like, you know, it's okay to have this one thing from this list, like have some cream cheese, just as long as you're not also eating it all the time or you're not resorting to it when you are not feeling good,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I think that's probably part of the mindset that they're trying to get at in their meetings is yeah, you shouldn't be accidentally eating anything. And if you are working towards a goal, you're not going to hit your goal if you keep eating these things. But the maintenance plan probably digs into more about how to incorporate these into your lifestyle moving forward once you hit your goal weight. What I did find particularly entertaining is that on the top of the list of forbidden foods is alcoholic beverages, and they had to clarify, including beer, because I'm picturing someone saying, like, but beer doesn't count.
Oh yeah. So do you have any like sample menus? We've done sample menus in previous episodes. So it'd be kind of cool. Do we have any for Weight Watchers?
Indeed, we do, Gonzalo. So, for breakfast, you can have 1 egg or 1 ounce hard cheese, or 2 ounces fish, or a quarter cup of cottage cheese, and 1 slice of bread. For lunch, you can have 4 ounces of fish, canned or fresh, or lean meat or poultry, or 2/3 cup cottage cheese, or 4 ounces farmer cheese, or 2 ounces hard cheese, or 2 eggs, plus all the unlimited vegetables you want, and 1 slice of bread. Side note, I love it when they
Okay.
say all the vegetables you want. That's kind of the lifestyle that I've chosen, is just veggies most. So anyone that says eat all the vegetables you want, I'm like, yes, all the vegetables, because I'm a volume eater and I want to take a lot of bites. So like all the vegetables you want, like I will load up on all of the vegetables, and then I feel like I'm eating a lot, but I'm actually kind of putting myself at a calorie deficit without even thinking about it because most of my plate is vegetables.
Yeah.
So dinner, you can have 6 ounces of cooked lean meat or fish or poultry, plus one portion of the limited vegetables, the one portion of a vegetable from the limited vegetable list, and then all the unlimited vegetables you want. And then must be taken at some time during the day, a total of 3 fruits, 2 cups of skim milk or buttermilk, or 1 cup of skimmed evaporated milk. So at some point you have to figure out how to work that in there, and may be taken at any time of day, any unlimited foods and beverages.
Okay.
So they encourage snacking, I guess. That's where you fit your fruits in, or I suppose you could have one as dessert.
Really, the milk part is the easiest. I don't know. I love flat white milk, cold. And I know a lot of listeners are going to disagree with me on this one, but finishing mowing the lawn in a hot day, best thing I could do is have a glass of white milk. Cold milk.
Interesting. Yeah, if you enjoy drinking milk, that would be easier. But anyway, so that's the menu. What I find interesting about it mainly is that it encourages, like, the meals, like my two things I've noticed, like, that stand out the most about the example menu is that the meals get bigger as the day progresses.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they make you work in those 2 cups of milk and 3 fruits, but they don't tell you when to eat them. So that kind of makes it feel like they give you a little bit of flexibility slash the ability to snack.
Yeah, it's like having a like build your own. Yes, you're following a plan, but you're also getting to put your own input. Cool. So now that we have a list of what we can and cannot eat and a sample menu, how do we get to today's world with Weight Watchers?
So, in 1968, the company went public and expanded into prepared foods, spas, camps, and weight loss products like scales and travel kits. In 1970, Jean published her first book, The Memoir of a Successful Loser, The Story of Weight Watchers, which I really wanted to read in preparation for this episode, but it must be out of print or something because the paperbacks are going for like $30 on eBay.
Oh wow.
So I'm just going to have to wait and find that at a thrift shop one day. So in 1973, Jean Nidetch resigned as president of the company to devote herself to public relations. And by the mid 70s, the company developed a specialized food plan for management of weight loss plateaus and maintenance. And then by the late 1970s, the company was too huge for Lippert to continue to manage on his own. He'd been actually running the business this whole time. But then it was sold, along with its food licenses, to the H.J. Heinz Company. Yes, that Heinz.
The ketchup pints?
Yeah, the ketchup Heinz. In 1978 for $72 million.
Wow.
And the company stayed profitable year over year through the 80s, and didn't start declining until the early 1990s when competition started springing up from Jenny Craig, Slim Fast, Healthy Choice, and Nutrisystem. What's interesting about the company, though, is, I guess, and that's, you could tell from our opinions on the food lists and menu above, that basically Weight Watchers has been trying to evolve with the times, and all of the like shifting cultural mindset about what healthiness looks like, and there's a lot of free weight loss programs and apps available and a lot more flexible plans, so they've been kind of evolving as time goes on, and that kind of culminates in September 2018 when the company rebrands itself as WW International Inc. and shifts its focus more broadly to overall health and wellness, including fitness. It adopted a new tagline, Wellness That Works, and it stopped requiring users to have a weight loss goal in order to join. And they renamed the in-person meetings to wellness workshops.
Okay.
And that's the history of Weight Watchers up till now.
Cool.
Did you have any thoughts before I just transition into the etiquette segment?
Maybe. So, I've never done Weight Watchers. I guess you could say I'm into fitness, and that lifestyle. But unlike Weight Watchers, I am a calorie counter, and I think that comes with part of like my involvement in the gym and stuff because I am more into like counting my macros and that kind of stuff, and not so much about like what foods I can and cannot eat. Though I will say that I tried my hardest to stay away from things like donuts and stuff.
I'm much the same way in that, like, there are certain parts of the year where I'm more likely to eat desserts and others, and kind of why I find the story so interesting, and the founder so interesting and relatable is because, like, I also tried a lot of different dieting plans my whole life. None of them really took until I was trying to lose weight before I turned 30, and it actually worked. And the diet plan I ended up following is called the 2B mindset, which was the first one I found that I guess they kind of have food lists, but they also don't count calories. You don't have to plan your whole week where like you're supposed to eat like in this week you have to have 5 fish meals and 5 whatever. It's basically like it was a system where you kind of split your plate into food groups.
Uh huh.
I like this story because it was like one person's personal journey that just people really stuck to, and um, even if they've gotten, even though people think of nutrition differently now than then, I still find it fascinating. And I'm thinking for my, like, we're talking about all serious and how great it is, but honestly, there are some wacky Weight Watchers recipes that I found in my in the recipe card library I just bought. So I'm thinking about making our like Instagram posts that go along with this episode, just like some of the silliest Weight Watchers recipes
There
I
you
found
go.
in my cookbook. Even though we're being very serious in this episode, I just think it would be remiss to not include some of the wackier stuff. But anyway, so now that we're all caught up to the present, this is the time where we transition into our etiquette segment. So, Gonzalo, what did you bring today?
So today's etiquette segment comes from a book published in 1957 called Amy Vanderbilt's Complete Book of Etiquette, A Guide to Gracious Living.
Cool.
And it comes from chapter 54, Traveling with Children. First things first, you should, quote, avoid travel with them if you can help them if they are very young, end quote. And the reasoning here is that it's tiring for both children and parents. If travel is necessary, travel by private car, if possible. If not, quote, spend extra, if at all possible, to ensure maximum privacy and comfort, end quote. And they explain that as having your own compartment on a train or your own cabin if you're traveling by boat, so that you are giving the children more space. The chapter also goes on to say that flying by plane, it seems that the flight can, quote, act as a soporific to the little children and interest the older ones to such a degree that their behavior is usually exemplary, end quote. As if they are saying you should fly with the children is not an issue. They are actually going to be excited, and the flying will soothe the little ones, so they'll be better behaved.
Cool.
Yeah. And then the last thing they say is that you should never start a trip with children in the middle of the afternoon or at the end of the day. And that is also a rule for grown-ups, because even for them it can be taxing. If absolutely necessary, make an attempt to stay on your child's sleeping schedule instead of pushing to get to an objective the same night. This way you get rest, and both of you and the children can, quote, get start out early again, refreshed and cheerful, end quote. So what do you think about this 1950s etiquette on traveling with
I
children?
mean, I think this is pretty reasonable. Like, I was expecting it to be like very children should be seen and not heard, and like be more like that first rule where just avoid traveling with them if you can help it. Because it's true, like it's like I can see how they would consider it like really bad etiquette to bother the rest of society with your children. Like that's what I was expecting the whole thing to be. But most of it is like work around your children's sleep schedule, and like they'll like a plane because they'll sleep and like stuff like that. So I think this is pretty reasonable advice.
Yeah, I honestly, when I started reading this chapter, I was thinking the same thing. I thought it was going to be very much like children should not travel. You're going to bug everyone. And really what I was expecting is in true 1950s is like you're going to bother the men.
So true. Yeah, so I think this is all pretty reasonable advice. So I say, yeah, I'd say keep this etiquette tip.
You know what? I think so too, especially because when talking about never starting in the middle of the day or in the evening, it's like the children will not like it, but neither will the grown-ups. And having started long car trips in the evenings, I 100% agree. Because like 2 hours in, I'm ready to go to sleep. So I vote that we keep it.
Yeah, I do too. I think this is pretty good advice.
Yep. Well, then it looks like we've landed the plane. Thank you guys all for listening today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe to the show and tell a friend.
You can also follow us on Instagram at MCL Podcast. This is the best place to send us feedback and episode suggestions, so you can send us a DM anytime.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Bye!
Thank you for listening to Mid-Century Living. Please subscribe, tell your friends, and leave a review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also follow us on Instagram at MCL Podcast. See you next Friday.